Central banks have no tools left because their biggest tool is interest rate, and you basically have the world anchored at zero. And there's only so much debt, whether you're a government, a corporation, or an individual. At some point, you have to do something with that debt, whether it's, service it, pay it, or default on it. So when you're in this kind of circumstance, the current system does not work. They need to put in a brand new system, and that's the reset. Now, where we are in it is there is currently a bill going through both, this is really interesting, George, Congress and the Senate simultaneously, which is not something that I think happens very often. So It's fast-tracked, and it's called Banking for All, where the Federal Reserve will actually create a digital money, and it's called, surprisingly enough, because they got to keep things as close to the same as possible, but this is the new money, the digital dollar. Right? They did the same thing back in 1913 when you had the gold certificates. It was $1, and after they installed the Federal Reserve, it was still $1. They did the same thing in 71. It was $1 before they took gold out of the equation, and it was $1 afterwards. So they know they have to keep everything the same. Now, in that one paper, which is really one of my favorites, or I don't know that it's my favorite, but they gave you such a beautiful 18-step outline of how they could transition us from a paper dollar system to a digital dollar system. Excuse me. And this bill is number 8 on that list.
Wow. Who put out this list, Lynette?
The IMF in breaking below the lower zero bound.
Oh, right.
Which is how you go below zero, and you can attack principal, which is one of the big threats in a digital currency. So right now in a paper currency, there's only 2 digits past that you can go. So, you have 100 pennies make $1. Well, once you go down to zero, you can't go any lower. But in a digital system, that's infinitely divisible. And the other big piece that people don't realize is that it gives the central bank direct and immediate control and their vision to see if their policy choices are doing what they want. So for example, this recent stimulus check of the $1,200.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people saved that money, and we saw the savings rate spike to 33%, when what the government wanted, what the central banks wanted, was for people to go out and spend that money and stimulate the economy.
Right.
Now, once it's in a digital wallet, but it's still a digital dollar, well, then they have the ability to go below zero. And after that one piece, they did another piece on how to take it deeply below zero using a 4% as an example. So you've got this bank account and you have $1,000 in it, let's just say, and you're not spending any money, but you're now going deeply negative, and you're just watching your principal evaporate. What are you likely to do? Likely to go out and spend it on anything that you think can retain its value better than in the bank. And that's hyperinflation. Exactly. And you probably went in. I mean, actually, when a currency is dying, that's a very typical thing. You could just look over at Zimbabwe, and they did it 3 times, and they actually print an expiration date on the cash. But to your point too, in this bill, you know what these accounts are called? Fed accounts.
Right.
So you have the digital dollar in a digital wallet, and they don't print it. It is just a ledger entry.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Right.
And the Fed account is actually, it looks like, it smells like, and it tastes like a regular bank account, because they know they've got to keep things as close to what you're used to as possible. And then they entice you. So no fees, they pay you interest, and initially anyway, they pay you interest. There's no minimum balance, there's no maximum balance. There's no, let's see, they kind of danced around the overdraft fees, so I'm not really sure about that because they didn't really specify.
Right,
Uh,
right.
but, and they also are saying in here that they will reimburse the banks for all costs. So the banks cannot cancel these accounts because of profitability. They're going to make sure, because it is direct. And for governments, I mean, why do governments care about that? Because for them, it's about taxation. And in all of my research, how many times I have read about lifetime taxation. And if they have access to everything in your account, if they want it, they just pull it out. And what are you going to do about it? Nothing. It's crazy because right now, the way the system is set up, they can make policy, and then the bank's job is to carry out that policy. But it takes 18 months to go through the system to see if they are getting the results that they want. This makes it instantaneous. So if you aren't spending fast enough, guess what happens to your principal balance? It evaporates that much faster to inspire you to volunteer. And frankly, this is really what makes physical gold and silver in your possession that much more critical. Because 100% of the time, you can convert it into whatever that current currency is, and therefore protect your purchasing power, which is what matters to people. What can I buy with these dollars, whether they're paper-based or digital-based or anything? What can I buy with them? Because that's what we really need. So, and I personally modified my strategy once I saw the digital dollar coming in, because I had originally, based on history, thought that once we made that full transition, that I would convert the lion's share of my gold holdings into the new currency when it was more stable, etc. But I have modified it, and I'm not going to. I will convert it as I need it so that I can protect my purchasing power.